Hello everybody, I'm Togashi, and it's time to review the new movie of My Little Pony after a long wait. Let me start with, yes, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, I suggest you to leave now. Right now, go away, bye bye, bye bye. So, okay, to everybody who are still here, as always I have the link to my band reaction down in the description. But I encourage you all to watch it in the cinema, as I did after watching this version. Sadly, I can only see the Hungarian dub movie in our cinemas, so Hungarian dubs for My Little Pony are infamous for being horrible. I mean, Alphatosh couldn't even sing at the beginning. But I was disappointed in a good way. They actually recasted the voice actors for the movie for ones who could actually sing, and translated the songs in a way that kept the rhythm and the meaning, which is quite new. Well, there were some slight changes, but I will get to those when I get there in the review. So, the only strange voice actress choice was Rainbow Dash, but after hearing her sing, I had no problems with it because, as I said, they chose voice actresses who could actually sing. Now, let's head back to the review, before I start mumbling about the Hungarian version too much. This is a review of the movie. You know me, I go through each main point of the story, starting with the Friendship Festival and probably the new graphics, as I mentioned, watching the trailers. I don't mind this style of animation they chose, but sadly this is not really achievable in an episodical basis. We can see the work they put in the shading, the details and the fluid movement. It is different, but it's not gonna happen in the series. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna happen. It was good for once. But let's talk about Twilight's first real festival. She absolutely did a great job, having the two best party planners, Pinkie Pie and Cheese Sandwich, famous designers, musicians invited. But where is Rara, Countess Coloratura? I know she forgot she is not using that name anymore, but did she really drop that much fame on the fame that Songbird Serenade took over? Remember how she was called the biggest pony pop star in Equestria? I have I have no other problems, as they have Sia in the movie, but and I quite like how they depicted her here, being friendly and understanding. She just loves those Twilight's cake problem, even trying to lighten up the mood with a bad pun. May I check? But there is one problem with it. The princesses didn't agree to Twilight's ban, with a very good reason. Moving the sun and moon doesn't come without consequences. We all know, from geography, at least I hope you all do, I do, that the moon's gravity has great effect on our planet, and it has to be the same for Equestria as well. One more movement and the water levels would rise or fall immeasurably, flooding or drying Equestria out, just for a little show. And in Twilight's calculation I didn't see any water. I saw cupcakes, I saw butterflies, music, but no water anywhere. She only counted how the light show would be perfect. And with those sad things, Cadance Crystal Magic does nothing, so why would she help? She should have asked probably Trixie for the light show part, but yeah. Wait, fireworks can make a lot of noise, so it's unlucky to have it during the song. I see why she didn't choose to. Speaking about songs, we have the second song right before we see Sia, and it is a song I don't know how to feel about, and I mentioned this in the blind reaction. Because of the abrupt stops in the refrain. You can do it. But as I edited the lyrics and the blind reaction. I got drawn into it more and more. Overall, it is not a bad song. You just have to get used to it. As always, it is impossible to translate a song word by word. But there is only one small difference. In the Hungarian version, they sang everything is easier together instead of we got this together. Well, I translated it to English so you could know what they were singing, but it is similar. So they got the meaning and the rhythm together. Sorcery, it's not gonna happen. How did they do this? Just kidding. What I have to say, I am disappointed in Rainbow in the movie. Before the song, she claims that the skies are clear. But then, in the song, they are still clearing the sky, even leaving a small cloud in front of the sun. What a messy job from the Weather Ponies and the Wonderbots. They are the best flyers. Yeah. But I don't wanna offend anybody. Let's just move on to the point where Tempest arrives. The big and terrifying villain who starts her speech with asking for surrender. Yes, she offered a way without anyone getting hurt. But as soon as she saw the slightest hint of resistance, attacked. Not doing an heavy monologue telling everyone her plans, actually turning the three of the princesses in stone. And 3 because Twilight ran away, and we know one of them didn't even given birth yet. So yes, 3 of them. Which is basically a main point in the story. Let's talk about the mystical morphing green crystal. We all know green is the color of evil in the show, but this is just overkill. This little stone can expand on high velocity impact, imprisoning any living creature by crystallizing their body structure. Why I say high velocity impact is quite obvious. It didn't affect Tempest upon first contact when she bugged them. And if we say it's because of the armor she is wearing, no, not true, because later when she gets crystallized while wearing the same armor. So I think it has to be at high velocity to start acting. Speaking about the armor, I am in awe how well prepared these attackers are. They somehow managed to get some sturdy metallic armor for everyone, which repairs magic, and it is sturdy. Now we know that how the Storm King got his throne, with brute force, by his army. We don't know what these big and bulky creatures are, but Grubber does look kinda like a hedgehog, like Sonic, and seem to be the same species as the big ones. I'm not sure. If anyone knows what kind of creatures they are, I'm happy to be enlightened. Now, I have to point out a big problem I noticed in the Hungarian version, not in the original. Celestia clearly said hippogriff instead of hippos, causing confusion later on. Why they don't know who to search for, I have no idea. But obviously I cannot leave this part without mentioning the Abyss heroic sacrifice and pointing out how useless the princesses were, the pony princesses. Luna provoked Tempest into attacking. Cadance was instantly captured. Celestia was not concentrating on the attack, so she got hit. She could easily just dodge them, and Luna was flying in a straight line without looking back. Come on, now we know how can all the villain capture them. I mean, all of them. But let's move on to the confusion moment in the Hungarian version, which comes from the first part. I have no idea how Twilight has so bad hearing. She had growth, which is basically Earl in English. Yep, instead of hippos, they are searching for Earth in our version, which makes not many sense. To make things worse, they call it Whoopie Groves, which is basically a horrible play on words, as Whoopie is a shade of blue that the Smurfs had. Yep, we call them the Whoopie Cakes, Derpy Cake. That would sound horribly to you, but yeah, it is bad. But they managed to add a good joke coming from this. When they try to decide what that means, they start thinking about what color those earths are, blue or purple, when suddenly AJ just blurts out, orange, for no reason. Yeah, every language has their ups and downs in joking. But back to Tempest. So she's quite unhappy that the ponies are wasting magic for stupid reasons, and she is following someone who is clearly an idiot. Also, we have another case of mystical cell phone. Is that potion one-time use, or how does it work? Do they have to refill it? But even it has a magic spell reception. So bad. But we get one big reason why she follows the Storm Kings. A real reason, not like many other villains. To restore herself. And actually I thought that the Storm King was who cracked Tempest's horn first. But we know later on that it is not true. But now we can move on to the scariest place of Equestria. Wait, I think we are not in Equestria anymore, and they actually mention it. This shady town and desert are all under the ruling of the Storm King, and they use storm coins, not bits. If some indebted cat wouldn't come to the rescue here, they would get enslaved. They got their homes sewed down and mains cut and sold part by part. Speaking about mains, is it strange that I like Rarity's main better in the desert when it was all scruffy? I don't know. But we start my second favorite song in the movie. This town is not a good place for the fillies all alone. No, I can't sing. But yes, this is my second favorite song. Now guess which my first one is. Within that, we see how crafty Crapper is. Even though he is stealing, bribing, and basically saving them to show them he is truly a friend, only Twilight watches him suspiciously. Still, we have to agree, without him, they wouldn't have survived the town's shady streets, and wouldn't have found the map for the hippogriffs, and wouldn't have found out that they have to find the hippogriffs at all. But I don't know how they intended to catch them. They didn't have any magical capture device, like a Pokeball or something. I mean, even Tempest with a broken horn alone could stop the circus master. Let's just call him at that. I forgot his name. And they had an alicorn and a unicorn in that team. Twilight has to be stronger. You remember? Alicorn. But back to Tempest. Again, it seems the lowly scum of his town wasn't informed that the general of the Storm King's army is an unicorn with a broken horn, which is basically quite a distinct feature. She could easily just tell them who she is, but she decided not to use the name of the Storm King, but to rely on her own strength. And this is a theory, but I think this actually means that she probably grown up in the slums too after running away, knowing the creatures like this fishman can only be forced to show respect with force. And that is true. As for the main six's escape, it could have gone smoother. Pinky nearly plummeted everyone to death by jumping onto the rope, it is only thanks to Kepler that they not caught immediately. And Twilight that they didn't plummet to Earth. But again, I have to give more respect to Tempest for seeing through that hesitation, that slight hesitation, and bringing him with herself. Sadly, this opportunity was wasted by Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie, and everyone else's other efforts. First, the Sonic Rain Boom was unnecessary. We all know that. They were hidden in the clouds. It just alerted the enemy and put our buddy adventurers in danger. But if they actually either take the map with them, or not let Pinkie Pie draw on it, and maybe not shout when they were falling, they could have saved the airship. But they had to give them away. And to put Rainbow Dash into the makeshift hotel balloon, so much unnecessary movements. But the song was awesome. There is no other way to describe it. And it is strange to say this, but the Hunger Games makes more sense than the original one. They said it's time for us to be free again. Instead, it's time to be awesome. But again, that freedom had a huge cost. Yep. But I quite like all of them, the pirate groups or adventurers. I have no reason not to like them. But we have to follow our main troublemakers into a dark place which shows us that what the army of the Storm King can do. And they almost drown. I mean, if Skystar didn't show interest in them, it would be the end of story. Game over. And I don't know why. About the sea hippogriff design. It's nice. It's really nice, but there is one big flaw. Why did they give up their beaks? They are fishes with beak like mouse. So the reason for the design change must be only to throw us off. It's one of their best defenses, the beaks. And in their design, they are fully vegetarian. But again, we have to give to so many disappointments in this movie. After a typical happy-go-lucky party music from Pinkie, Twilight once again tries to steal something shiny. Yes, she actually did this before with elements of harmony. But here, she topped it off by not believing in her friends and using gaps as decoys. It's just a verse. What would have they earned? I don't know, what would have they earned by turning every pony in the Fisher-likes? Who said that its orb can turn them into anything else? No one. No one. For all we know, this orb, this pearl, can turn any living creature into another water type. But again, I have to agree with the Queen. For this, drowning is the perfect punishment. Why? Because they know the secret of the hippogriffs and they can lead the Storm King here from spite or anything. But they survived. And one other thing, let's just look at the Rage eating Twilight away while she's this close to magically attack Pinkie Pie. Applejack's dad describes this moment perfectly. I remember one thing Agamis mentioned earlier. Twilight and Spark are inseparable. They even come in combo packs. This is the sole reason he couldn't leave Twilight, but he considered it. We saw it in his eyes as well. And now, back to the villain. Her best, and actually my favorite song. Can you imagine that the awesome song is only number 3 in my book? Because it is. If you remember, I mentioned how silly Starlight's motive is. You might wonder what I think about her motive. Well, let's see the differences. Starlight lost a friend who was just a jerk to begin with. Gone evil for that. Evil. Tempest was sent to a cave of an Earthside, where she lost her horn, and the one whose fault it was started to avoid her out of fear and probably repentance too. They left a disabled friend alone when she needed them most. And not just only the two of them, every pony. I mean, she probably tried every possible means to get her horn back. You would do that too, even auditioning in front of the almighty Celestia, just to be denied everywhere. This is where I think she decided to live alone outside of Equestria is better, where she can only depend on herself, but still not giving up hope, learning about the staff, which can concentrate magic. This seemed the only way possible to get her horn back, but she still missed something. The Storm King had the forces to accomplish finishing the staff. Yes, it seems the Storm King didn't know about the staff. We know that from the phone call. And it was Tempest who offered him eternal power and her loyalty for repairing her horn and giving her an army. This is why I think her motive is the most reasonable for all the villains. Up until now. Up until season 6 finale. But we know how this ended, sadly. Now, here was one part I was really concerned about. When we heard Songbird singing in her cage. How did the translation go? They actually chose the best possible way. The best possible outcome. They kept Sia's song in the original language. And I was quite happy about it. They didn't butcher it. But now that I have talked about the main antagonist, what about the big bad boss, the Storm King? Well, he tries too hard to be like this god. He is not that terrifying alone, but has the military power, and thanks to Tempest's help, he has the magical power too. And what he does with his newfound power? Starts to play with the sun and the moon. He actually reminds me of Rafiki when he does that. Which makes no sense, as Rafiki was actually wise. And if the Storm King would be wise, he would have given Tempest the reward. Unless he knew the reason why Celestia didn't repair her horn. It was impossible to begin with. Yeah, I think that is the sad truth. But again, he could have tried, and Tempest would have been okay with it. But no! He had to blurt out that he was just using her, hence his downfall. And about the rescue attempt, it was actually pretty well planned. And if that one bird would have kept his eyes closed, they might not have been discovered, but thanks to that, we can see that these creatures, the army, are actually feeling and have personalities, much greater than the Storm Kings itself. There is a possibility that they are blackmailed into being in this army for their family's safety, maybe? We cannot despise them for being pawns of a bad ruler. Changeling anyone? Changelings, maybe? I'm not saying they are changelings, but they are similar to that effect. But I was wondering, since when Spike can spew out constant flames for minutes? First the hot air balloon, now a sentient flamethrower. we have to remember, he was having many issues making a small flame, even in the Crystal Empire, to light the fire. But about the closure on the attack, I have not many problems, only that I would have been more happy to see the Hippogriffs attack and get back the stuff on behalf of saving the princess, instead of Twilight retrieving the rod, as in, I am a goddess. Yeah, that was her pose, basically. The Storm King got what he deserved, and actually died. Or at least broken into pieces, as we see him trying to put himself together in the credits. Nah, he definitely died. Credits are just there to throw us off and make us dance. And now we arrived where we can hear the Sia song Rainbow and its full glory, and confirm that all ends well. Forget the design though, red is design. I think Kepper looks better in red. Blue is just not his color. And they obviously had to butcher Tempest's name in the Hungarian version, whom they called Tornado up until now, and I don't actually remember how they called it in the Hungarian version, her full name, because it was awful, believe me. But overall, this movie was really good. Definitely worth the money to watch it in the cinema, and I will get a copy of the disc when it's gonna be available. Phew. This was a long review, and I think, okay, I'm still recording. I had to check. But if you are still here, I hope I didn't bore you to death. Thank you for being here, and I welcome any comments on how you liked the movie or hated it for some reason. It definitely had some more serious undertone than the series, but that just made it better in my opinion. Again, thank you for sitting through this definitely not short review, and see you next time, or in the comment section. Bye bye.